nice to have met some of you already for your introduction, and welcome to everybody. This is the second out of 3 interactive online seminars this month. The series was initiated by Philippe Jacquet, the HR Diversity Officer, and it was a particular concern for him to invite people from organizations who not normally would come to HR events. And I think just looking around, he has succeeded in this. So, but I don't think Philippe is here tonight. Well, welcome to Dale Mathers, who will talk about dreams and analytical psychology. And ominously, at least for people like me who can't draw, he asked us to prepare drawing paper and colored crayons. So I'm sure you're all ready and prepared. Dr. Dale Mathers is a dear colleague of mine, of ours at HR, and now a retired senior HR analyst. He is also a retired psychiatrist, but a still active member of the Buddhist Society. He trained at St. George's Hospital in South London, ran student counseling service at the London School of Economics. He was among a group of analysts who helped begin Jungian training in Poland, Russia, and Ukraine, and he still teaches and supervises in Russia and the Ukraine, which is remarkable. He says he has written and edited 5 books. One is Introduction to Meaning. I just have a message here requesting to record this meeting, but I think it's recorded anyway, so I will deny this.
It's my note taker. Oh, okay. I see you.
Oh, sorry. Is it a problem now? Send me another request if it's important.
I'll have to leave and come back. I'll do that now.
So the book, which has been translated in, Dale, how many languages?
Only 2.
Only 2? Well, Russian, isn't it? And he also had a very important book, Alchemy and Psychotherapy. He left out from the list one which is called Vision and Supervision, which he edited in the supervision course, Depth Psychology and Climate Change, which I have only as an ebook, so I can't show you. His next book will be Dreams, the Basics, and that will be published in the summer of next year. So I could say a lot more, but I'll rather want to have Dale now take over. Just again, just remember, mute your microphones, and you're obviously welcome to use the chat option. And during the discussion, I would prefer if you use the raise hand option, usually at the bottom of your screens or at the top if you're using an iPad. Because we are over 3 pages, so I can't have an eye on everybody raising the hand physically. Okay, but now over to you, Dale.
Okay, can I screen share, Arthur?
You can indeed.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Great. Has that worked?
Yes, perfect.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Arthur, for your introduction. Thank you to all of you for coming. It may be that some of you know more about dreams than I do, which is fine. It may be that you don't know anything about them at all. If you want to ask questions as we go along, you can use the chat option, and then Arthur can field things, but I hope there will be time for a discussion at the end. Please respect your own confidentiality should you choose to share anything from a dream. We're going to do this little drawing exercise. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. And it would help if you have your drawing things handy, just so you don't miss the rest of the story. This first picture is from Jung's Red Book, in which he wrote about his travels in his inner world, guided by his dreams and active imagination. There's a little text down here which says, finished on the 25th of November 1922, so it's almost exactly 100 years old. It says, the fire comes out of Muspili and grasps the tree of life. A cycle is completed, but the cycle is within the world egg. A strange god, the unnameable god of the solitary, is incubating it. New creatures come from the smoke and the ashes. Muspili means Muspelheim, which is in Norse mythology is the home of the fire god. You can see a little dragon down at the bottom. Now, if you suppose that the world egg is your skull, then the fire gods are the patterns of electricity in your neurons as they talk and make up a mind. Jung said, dreaming is a spontaneous portrayal in symbolic form of the actual situation in the unconscious. I'm going to briefly compare Freud and Jung and talk about some of the latest advances in neuroscience. This supports insights from both of them. Dreaming is something all mammals, birds, and reptiles do. People have puzzled about dreams forever. In older societies, there was, and is, a habit of telling dreams at the start of the day. The Sinoi people, who live in the mountains of Malaysia, still do this, as do people who live in the Amazon rainforest. My daughter's an anthropologist, and one of her friends has been telling me about them, because they were the tribe that he studied. Like our dreams, these dreams are about relationships and problems in daily life. The morning conversations can lead to action, like, today is a good day to go hunting, or maybe we could help you make up your quarrel with X. Dreams are complex, emergent systems bridging conscious and unconscious. I use between to name the liminal space between conscious and unconscious. Dreaming is between conscious and unconscious. This quote, in between, there are doors, I thought was from William Blake's Songs of Innocence and Experience. He was an artist, a poet, and a mystic who lived in Lambeth, not far from where I live. It's actually from Ray Manzarek, who was the keyboard player with the group The Doors in the 60s. Both of them knew that their creative work began with dreams and visions. They made them into poems, stories, and pictures. When the Jungian analyst James Hillman talks about dreaming the dream on, he means doing the same as Blake. You make something with it. So Jungian approaches are less about interpreting a dream than going for a walk with it and seeing where it leads. In Hillman's view, we are inside the dream rather than the dream being inside us. I'll just say that again, because it's really very different. We are inside the dream rather than the dream being inside us. Dreams are stories that we tell ourselves. We start doing this when we are about 24 weeks old in the uterus. Once we have a brain, it dreams. We dream the most right before we are born, about 8 to 12 hours a day in the first few weeks before birth. So we dream ourselves into our new body. Our brain is starting to connect, and the full process of connecting takes until our early 20s. Our brain and the mind which it creates is continuously changing. Dreams usually happen in sleep, but not always. Adults sleep about 7 to 9 hours a night. In sleep, we grow, do routine body maintenance, evolve our memories, and consider what might happen next. This is called Next Up, and it's the name for a new theory about dream structure and function by two professors from Harvard. I can tell you more about that if you want later. Once upon a time, back in the 50s, while watching his sleeping son, a sleep researcher noticed rapid eye movements, or REM. He realized these happen during dreaming. As I said already, you see this in your cat and dog. They have rapid whisker movements sleep. We spend about 2 hours a night in REM and about half an hour to an hour in non-REM dreaming. So dreaming is not just something that happens in rapid eye movement sleep. Non-REM dreams are fuzzy, with less story and more feeling. If you wake with a very sort of abstracty, swirly picture and a big feeling, then that's you waking from a non-REM dream. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. In any dream, as you know, time changes. A dream that lasts a few minutes may seem to have taken hours. We also daydream for about half our waking life. This is strange, but it's true. Even when we imagine we're conscious, we're not that conscious. An adult concentration span is at best 20 minutes. It's far less in children. So between is a space-time with changing boundaries, like a beach, as the tide goes in and out. Freud wrote his classic interpretation of dreams in 1901. The first edition only sold 600 copies. He used his own dreams and free associated to them. He wanted to give his technique a scientific basis. This here, of course, is from Dorothy's Dream, and this is in The Wizard of Oz, and this is the Emerald City. Freud said that dreams are symbolic communications. They reshape deep feeling, often sexual feelings, into images which guard sleep and prevent us being woken by the demand of the id. Some therapists in some schools call this the lower unconscious. It contains childhood memories, unresolved upsets, desires, and drives. Dreams turn these into symbols with less emotional tension. Freud supposed there is a censor which made these desires more acceptable. He supposed dreams are about the past or the immediate present and are based on day residues. That's emotionally important things that we did during the day that we reflect on while we are asleep. All of these statements are true sometimes, but they're not all true all the time. None of them are the whole story, and there probably won't ever be a whole story. The unconscious is like a bottomless well. Jung's ideas always differed from Freud's. He was a psychiatrist who worked with psychotic patients. Freud was a neurologist who worked with neurotic patients. Jung had a deep interest in parapsychology and was familiar with the ancient idea that dreams are communications from the spirit world. This didn't trouble him. He wrote, drew, and made sculptures based on his dreams. And if you want to know more about the relationship between the two of them, there's a very good book by Deirdre Bear. Jung also thought dreams are the products of the unconscious, and the unconscious is always on your side. And that's a really important thing to get hold of. It's your unconscious, so it's on your side. Dreams are symbolic. They derive from archetypes. They have a spiritual component, and I'll leave you to define spiritual yourself. They're about the future, that is, about what's next up, and about the immediate present. Jung also used free association to explore dreams, and he used active imagination and amplification. So the dream gives you a story outline, which you can then expand into a novel or a play or a piece of music or a dance. Working with dreams is more like this. Surfers watch the sea, they paddle out, they wait for a break, then they try and catch a wave. The unconscious is like an ocean. Consciousness is about the size of a surfboard. Whatever we do when we look at the dream, we're not expanding consciousness. Having a bigger surfboard is absolutely no use at all. It's all about balance. So it's about how do you use the board that you've got. As Jung pointed out, balancing is the meaning and the purpose of dreams because they compensate for your conscious attitude. Dreams are invariably seeking to express something that the ego does not know and does not understand. So they're a keyhole into the inner world rather than a royal road. The stories that we tell ourselves can be as short as a postcard, or they could be a fantasy trilogy. And I'm going to use a story to show you what that might look like. It's part of a fantasy trilogy in 7 volumes, like most fantasy trilogies. The story is The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. This is a copy of the cover of my edition of it. It's the first book in the Narnia series, and it was the 5th to be published. It's set in Edwardian England. Young Diggory Kirk meets Polly Plummer, the girl next door. They explore the attic passage between their homes. They open a door and find Diggory's wicked uncle, Andrew, who is a magician. He uses magic rings to send the children to another world, he thinks. But they don't go to another world. They go to the wood between the worlds, a between place. It's not a world. It is a place between all possible worlds. Here they are in it. It is always still. Nothing happens, yet everything happens. The forest is full of pools. Each pool leads to a unique world. They step into one and accidentally wake up Jadis, the White Witch. And then she's the villain in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Later in this talk, I'll explain about the part of our mind which is like the wood between the worlds. But before I do that, I think we should go there and then we can talk about it. Our guide will be this person, Hermes. Hermes is the young messenger to the gods. Remember the ancient idea that dreams are messages from the gods. Hermes, he, she, they, is non-binary. They are a trickster and a god of boundaries. In ancient Greece, a boundary marker with an erect penis on it was placed at the boundary of the property or on the doorpost. Hermes conducts souls after death to their uncle, Hades. Hermes is the god of shepherds, magicians, thieves, and merchants, and he is particularly there for children, as he's often portrayed as a child. Having checked with the Greek part of my family, children would talk to Hermes rather than talk to the grown-up gods. So if you were a kid with a problem, Hermes is the one that you would pray to. He's also a trickster, as I said, and he's very playful. So I'm going to invite you to play. You don't have to if you don't want to. That's all right. I'd like to ask you to relax and to go inside. So if you can make yourselves comfortable and do whatever you need to do that. Just maybe move around a bit, get into a comfortable position. Maybe close your eyes if that helps. And go inside and find an image. Any image from any dream you have ever had. If you can't remember any image from any dream, then use an image from a film or television or the theatre or whatever speaks to you. Don't hurry. Take your time. Notice what it feels like. Is there a feeling that goes with this symbol? Is there a sensation that goes with it? Okay. When you're ready, open your eyes. Make sure you're back in your chair. If you're not back, please raise your hand. Okay, now draw what you find. The drawing could be like the one on the screen. It doesn't have to be artistic. And if you didn't find anything at all, draw that too. Just make a squiggle. Okay. You can, if you haven't finished, you can complete it a bit later. Now, if I was doing this in a room, I'd ask you to share your drawing with the person next to you, or to get into a small group and talk about it. We're doing it online, so we'll do it the next best way that we can. Arthur will put you into a breakout room with a few other people, and you've got about 10 minutes to talk to each other. You can't obviously show them the drawing, but you can hold it up to the screen. I hope maybe let's see how we're doing after 10 minutes. If that's not long enough, we can give it a little longer. Is that okay? Can't hear you, Arthur.
Sorry, would you stop screen sharing?
Yep.
Then it's easier to.
Of course.
So we are including ourselves 54. So if we have 10 groups, that puts about 5 people into a group. Is that about right?
Yeah. Can I sit it out?
Yes, I guess so. At least I can remove you from a group. Let's just get started.
Okay.
So I create 10 breakout rooms. I couldn't do it beforehand because I didn't quite know how many would be here. And I assign automatically, if it should happen that there are 2 people who, where there is some crossover, analyst, supervisor, and so on here, then send me a chat message and I will allocate you to a different group. Okay, so I open the rooms now and you will be invited to join.
People are coming back. It worked. That's exciting.
You have 10 seconds before the rooms will finally close. Okay,
There we go.
everybody is back.
Right. So if any of you would like to share in the larger group with about what happened, please do. Don't all shout at once.
I don't mind sharing. Yeah.
Go ahead, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a dream that it's part of a dream which has stuck with me. I usually write my dreams down, but they're very long. And this was one. Do you need me to share the picture first or the dream?
Just show us the picture.
Just the picture.
Show us the picture. Okay, say what it is.
This is well, this is me, the dream ego here.
Mhm.
And this is a child next to me.
Mhm.
This is a window. And it's in a hotel, like a hotel lobby. It felt a little bit like a hotel lobby, or yeah, that's what it felt like. And a wave came crashing through the window, and I knew it was coming. And there were lots of other people in the space, and I felt very calm in the dream, and I could hear other people in the dream crying and panicking, but I felt calm. And I just rolled over and held the child next to me and hugged them. And I knew this was the end. And the wave took us back into the room, into the room further behind the picture here. And I thought to myself, should I breathe and try to get and try to get some more air into my lungs? Or do I just go with the flow of the water and just accept that this is the end? And I decided just to accept.
Thank you. Can you put the picture down so we can see you again?
Hello.
Obviously, we're not going to interpret anything in a large group. I'm just rather struck that that's the image that opens the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, one of the other Narnia books, where the children are looking at a picture and then a wave splashes of a ship on the sea, and the wave splashes out of the picture and they're drawn into the picture, and that's how they get into Narnia.
Ah.
So even though you didn't know it, it's actually a mythical image.
Right.
It was used, C.S. Lewis used in telling his stories. It's very strange how this happens. That you get these. This is what archetypes are about. You get these resonances across people's dreams and across people's psyche. Would anyone else? Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to share? You don't have to, but if you would, it's quite nice for the others to see. Nicola?
Sorry, no, I wasn't asking to share.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm happy to share if you
Hey,
like.
Julie. Yes, please.
So I'm not sure anyone can see this. It's basically, it was a castle at night time. It was all very twilighty, and I was somehow in this castle, or like National Trust property type thing, and I was looking down, and there were people scurrying into rooms down below me, and I seemed to be above them. And I thought, that's weird, they shouldn't be here. Oh, well, maybe they're going into their rooms for the night. And then there was this really, really tall woman, much, much bigger than me, like the size of the castle, the height of the castle, very scary, matronly looking woman, sort of scowling. And I thought, oh, she's scary. And then in my dream, I gradually got bigger, a bit like Alice in Wonderland. I got bigger and bigger and rose up. So I wasn't her height, but I was big enough so I wasn't as scared as before. And that's all I can remember of the dream.
It's like Matilda. Do you know Matilda, the little doll? The scary Miss Trunchbull, the horrible headmistress.
I've not read it, but yeah, it sounds good.
I know because my son directed it through a school musical last term.
Okay.
It's the castle, the group, the dividing, the terrible witch mother making an appearance. So it's another one of these archetypal images that practically everyone I've ever worked with had the terrifying witch and castle dream.
Okay.
I'm not downing your dream. I'm just
No,
saying
that's fine.
it's a really common pattern.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
This is what when you have listened to lots of dreams, you notice that there are certain patterns that repeat. And that's sort of real evidence for Jung's idea about the collective unconscious. When you do, a thing I like doing is social dreaming matrices, where you have 20 or 30 people, usually complete strangers, in a room, and all you do is share your dreams. They're not interpreted. There's a discussion after the social dreaming matrix about what was in the matrix, what the matrix was looking at. And I've done this in Japan, Italy, many countries in Europe and in America. Do I have a link I could put you to join Social Dreaming Matrix? No, I don't. But I can give you a link. I can probably give you a link after to how you can find out more about it. And when you do social dreaming matrices, you discover that there really are these patterns that run across cultures. For instance, when I did it in Oslo, everybody in Norway dreams about fjords. Nobody in Japan ever dreams about fjords. When I did it in Italy, everybody dreams about pasta. You know, it's strange but true. No one in America dreams about pasta unless they're Italian American. So that little exercise was a way to find a symbol. I'm going to screen share again. A sign isn't a symbol. A sign is a symbol plus X, where X is an unknown. We can't know what it is. It's unknowable. For example, if you were a very clever astronomer, you could know what the weather is on Neptune. But how the mind works is unknowable. It's too difficult for us to even begin to understand how it works. The next bit of this talk is blue sky thinking. It's about minds. Well, it's about three minds, three neural networks which link the brain and the body together to make a mind. Mind does not exist just in the brain. Your mind is all over your whole body. And no one's mind can exist separately from the minds around it. You never get a mind on its own. Where does a cloud end and another one begin? These are cirrus clouds. They're fractal and they are an open system. So there are two kinds of thinking, concrete thinking and symbolic thinking. Concrete thinking is closed and symbolic thinking is open. Concrete thinking uses either or, as in either it's right or it's wrong, either it's black or it's white. Symbolic thinking uses both and neither nor. So a cloud both has a boundary and doesn't have a boundary, and neither has or does not have a boundary. There's all four possibilities at the same time. This is how analysis actually works. I should charge you extra for this, because analysis involves being with not knowing. So we know and we don't know, and we neither know nor don't know. And all four are possible simultaneously. We can't know what any dream means, or what anyone's unconscious means, including our own. We can guess, but that's all it is. This is a picture of another open system. This is a forest. It's also a complex emergent system like the mind. You know that the trees communicate. They have fungal networks underneath that join all the trees in the forest together. If they weren't there, they'd die. Their roots touch and they communicate. Nerve cells look like trees. Trees are fractal. Nerve cells are fractal. So I'll just show you quickly what a fractal is. This is how to make one. It's a mathematical idea. It's very useful in understanding what happens with a dream. You start with a triangle, you take a bit away, then you do it again, and then you do it again. And you repeat and repeat and repeat. So you end up with something like that. And then that happens. Watch. Bing. You start with a fractal, and you get a tree. So this is a very basic natural shape which you find all over the universe, actually. And you find it in your mind, like that. The networks that trees and neurons form are infinitely complex, so you really cannot say where one part ends and another begins. Jung and Freud both knew this. Freud pioneered research which showed how nerve cells communicate. He was a really, truly brilliant experimental neurologist.
Dale, are you
Yeah.
accepting a question?
Yeah,
Then two wanted to ask something.
yeah.
Just going back to the idea of fractals, you for the triangle of the red pictures that you were showing, you were saying something is taken away, something more is taken away, and that's what creates fractals. So is that like the essence of fractals then, that some little parts are taken away,
That's
but
right.
but it creates more anyway.
Yes. But
Okay.
if you think of a very beautiful example of this, which is really quite straight, we are like that. You start with a round thing called an egg, a fertilized egg. It divides,
Mhm.
and then it divides again, and then it divides again, and then it divides again. And before you know where you are, you've got a ball of cells that started from one by splitting and then dividing. And it's the most extraordinary thing if you ever get to see embryological pictures of how this happens. So the process of subtraction, by taking a little bit
Mm.
and then repeating and repeating and repeating, leads to an extraordinarily complex structure. Yeah. You don't need to worry too much about the maths of it. I just think it's fascinating to have
Yeah.
that there's one sort of underlying structure for almost all natural shapes. And it's also true for the natural shapes that dreams make. Because there's a process, that's what, if you drop the word sensor in Freud and you say subtraction, something is taken away, that's much nearer to what it means.
So
May I
is
go on?
someone is someone
on.
suggesting that dreams are like fractals then?
I am suggesting that dreams are like fractals. That's exactly
Okay.
right. Yes, because they're fractals of meaning.
Mm.
You can
And
chase.
what were you saying? Oh, sorry.
That's
Carry
why
on.
you can't chase the meaning down.
Right.
Because every time you go in, there's more, and then you go in
And
on
in a
that.
sense, that's what you mean by a symbol, because there's an unknown meaning to
Yeah,
that fractal as well in your dreams. So one dream can never specifically mean this and only this,
that's
because
absolutely right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
one meaning can never ever sorry. One dream can never ever have one meaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
For instance, when I was 4, I dreamed about meeting my mummy in a meadow with blue flowers in it, beside a stream. The island on which I lived had no such meadows. I've worked on that dream many times in the last 65 years, and I still don't know what it means, and it's different every single time. So, you can't use a dictionary to get meanings for dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Don't
I'll throw
have
all those books away then. I'm joking.
take them to the charity shop. Someone might enjoy them. May I go
Yes.
on?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So trees, neurons, and dreams are fractals. There's a repetition. There's an unfolding symmetry. There are self-similarities, increasingly small scales. And they are alchemical. Like this. What you see at the big level is repeated on the micro level. And so on, going down and down and down. That's a more alchemical kind of picture, with a tree, with the roots spiraling in and then spiraling out. So if that was a dream, it spirals in from before and out into the future. That's like how the brain and body interact to create a mind. You can't say the mind makes the body. You can't say the body makes the mind. You need both. Now I'm going to zoom in on the idea of the mind. This is what I call an old school geography book picture of the brain, seen from the left. This is the frontal lobe. It's just here. It does thinking. This bit's the parietal lobe. It's behind your ears. It does movement and sensation. The temporal lobe is this green bit, just about here. It does words and sound. The occipital lobe in purple at the back does vision. The cerebellum, which is grey and below it, does balance. And then the spinal cord connects the whole lot to the body. This is a very simple, uncomplicated, and incorrect picture of what the brain does. This is the brain made really very simple for medical students. Why is it a simplification? Well, because we've got 100 billion brain cells. That means there are about 14 times more cells in here than there are people on the planet. That's a lot, okay? We can't ever know what they all do. And I know neuroscience can feel like a bit of a nuisance and tends to make people sleepy, but can I encourage you to stick with this for a few minutes? The three-network model arose because we can now use what are called functional magnetic resonance imagery scans of the brain. This means you can see bits light up when they're doing things. There are three main networks: the executive network, the salience network. Salience means what sticks out, and the default mode network. And this is a picture of them done using this fMRI scan. The default mode, let's do them in order, okay? These are in the cortex. They're above the limbic system, which does feelings, roughly, but they connect. And these networks are what link feeling with thinking. None of them actually do, quotation fingers, thinking. None of them actually do feeling. They're both and neither nor parts of the mind. Okay. The anti-correlation magic word means that when the executive network is on, the default network is off. And when the default network is on, the executive network is off. The salience bit at the top is a bit like MI5 or MI6. It's the security service. It's always on, even when you're dreaming. It's checking out the environment to make sure things are safe. It's looking for signals from the body to tell you what's going on in your insides. And it puts all of that together. There it is. The executive network does working memory, planning, visual imagination, empathy, facial recognition, and compassion, which is not something we often see in executives. Sorry if any of you are executive. And the salience network is like the spy. It does reward, ethics, impulse control, monitoring emotions. It's responsible for attachment behavior. It's responsible for waking and sleeping and alertness. The default mode network, which is bridging across between, this is the limbic system that does feelings here. This is a part called the amygdala, which is like the panic button. It does flight, fright, and freeze. The default mode bridges across these things, and it does these things. It's a storyteller. It reorganizes and consolidates memory. It does awareness. It decides what goes into your working memory. It monitors your emotions, and it's the part which works during meditation. This bit here, the posterior cingulate, is the part that uses most energy in the brain, because it's the part that's monitoring your feelings and making up stories about your feelings all the time, whether you're awake or asleep. You remember I said earlier that we are in a dreamy kind of state at least 50% of the time while we are awake. That's because the default mode and the executive mode timeshare. When you're super concentrated, your executive mode's taken over. When you're having a cup of tea or wondering about something, the default mode has taken over. They oscillate. When you are asleep and dreaming, this bit takes over. So when you're dreaming, you can they've done, you can see, you can fMRI scan people when they're dreaming, and you can watch it happen. And all of those bits there light up like a Christmas tree. It's the most astonishing thing to watch. You can probably find videos of it on YouTube. They've got videos of everything else. So the default mode has a big role in shaping the dreams. It puts the pictures, the words, the story, and the feeling together. Now, strangely enough, when we look at dreams using free association, active imagination, or guided imagery, it's the same part of the brain which does these things. So the bit that makes the story up in a dream is the same as the bit that we use when we start looking at it in analysis. Free association is unfocused thinking. There's no goal, there's no direction, there's no control. You let this part, the default mode, untell the story for you. It makes the story, if you are lucky enough to remember it, you can use it to retell the story in a different way. And dreams really do compensate for the conscious attitude. That's the big point out of all of this. Slightly, to me, tremendously exciting, maybe not to you, but Jung's remark about dreams compensating for the conscious attitude. The executive bit is the conscious attitude. The unconscious connection through the default mode compensates for whatever your conscious attitude happens to be. So, for example, if you feel that you're a very inferior person, then you might have grand dreams about being an important person, and vice versa. If you're sexually frustrated, then you might have sexual dreams, and so on. And I'm sure you can think of many other examples of how your dreams compensate. The default mode is also involved in mental health. Damage to it is part of what happens in autistic states. Certainly what happens in attention deficit disorder. It's implicated in bipolar disorder, particularly depressive rumination. And in Alzheimer's disease, it's probably the very first bit to be affected, particularly the posterior cingulate. If you look at Alzheimer's scans, that's where the holes start to appear first. So to summarize, dreams arise between these three networks. The default mode is the storyteller. The salience network is the guard. And in a dream, the executive network has a nap. None of the networks correspond to ego. None of them correspond to self. None of them are conscious, and none of them are unconscious. They are both conscious and not conscious, neither conscious nor not conscious. And there's a balancing of the mind that goes on during dreams between the three networks. So dreams really do balance the mind. That's what they're for. Jung said, we know that the mask of the unconscious is not rigid. It reflects the face we turn toward it. So, what we find in a dream is what we project into it and onto it. And in that way, dreaming is not very different from external reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. That was fascinating. We have just under 18 minutes for discussion. Sent to put quite a few questions and comments into the chat box. Maybe it would be a start to, if Dale, if you can see it and open it.
Oh yeah, open it. What a good idea, Arthur.
And maybe you can comment on it while others prepare their questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Santu, for your comments.
Just to help you out, I think the first question I asked, because I put a lot of notes of what you were saying. They're just, you know, repeating of your comments. But the questions I asked was, so is the brain a fractal?
Yes.
Well, yeah. And I answered my own question by saying it must be, because people lose their brain cells over time.
Yeah.
And so, and just to clarify, all three networks are above the limbic system. Is that right?
They overlap.
They overlap. Okay.
Overlap. They can take, as I said, it's both and neither nor image.
Mm.
Really helpful, because some parts like the amygdala and the posterior cingulate are anatomically in the limbic system, but the medial prefrontal cortex, which if I put my finger in, is about there, about that far back. It's like, you know, if you stuck your finger through your third eye, that's where you'd be. It's not part of the limbic system, it's part of the frontal lobe. I would strongly suggest that you don't get overexcited about too much of the anatomical detail, because unless you're a neuroanatomist or neuroscientist, it's pretty complicated. It's like trying to explain to somebody how a computer works. You know, it's all right when you get as far as a screen and a keyboard and perhaps a mouse, but once you get it, I'm just putting it here so that you know that there are people who do know about this.
Indeed.
That's why. And if you want to read more about it, you can get the book when it comes out next year. Sorry, that was a commercial, but the reason I'm saying that is because most of this is so new, it's not in the textbooks yet.
Can you put the title of your upcoming book, and I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants to save it and look for it later.
It's called Dreams, the Basics.
Wow. Okay.
So
I have the impression what we heard tonight went a bit beyond the basics.
Yes.
well, some of it did. Amanda's got her hand up.
Yeah, hi Dale, thanks. That was
Hi.
really fascinating. I think I might have asked you about this in another context, but I'd be really interested again to hear what you have to say about how the default mode network is impacted by you know, our current collective use of media, audio books, social media, engagement with screens, all of that stuff.
It gets flooded. It gets flooded. You notice that in the three network model, the salience network is on all the time, because we have to be continuously vigilant to our inner physical experience and to what's going on around us. If you flood your salience network, it's very difficult for the other two to do anything. So if you're continuously attending to your screen, like you're on the tube, you can't even switch the phone off. You know, when I travel on the underground in London, I see practically everyone's got their phone on and they're emailing or looking at a talking book or, I don't know, checking the lottery numbers or whatever it is people do on mobile phone. There's no off time. So you never get the chance. Yes, so they flood the salience network so other networks can't function properly.
Oops. Yep. I'll amend that.
So they can't function properly.
Yeah, I got it.
So
I missed.
you don't have enough default time. You probably need about, I don't know, 30 to 40% of your waking time in default mode. That's when you're dreaming while awake and reflecting on things like when you drive, when you drive to somewhere you go every day or to work or wherever, you're not thinking about what you're doing, are you?
No.
You're just doing it because your unconscious can do it for you. So your default mode works in the car or on the train when you're not doing anything. If you don't have downtime because you've filled it all up with social media, you don't get the time to process the information that you need. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And if it isn't social media, but if someone, say, can't sleep and tries to sleep by listening to audiobooks, are they then preventing themselves from going into that same state? Or
Yeah, that's a common thing. It's something you notice in people with severe post-traumatic stress disorder, is that they have an initial sleep disturbance, the initial insomnia, and they often try and fill that by listening to talking books or audiobooks or the radio, and it makes it worse.
Why is that? Because of the words? And if they listen to music with no words, would that help?
It's because there's content. And
Yeah.
as soon as there's content, we start attending.
even
So
if
if there's
it's C.S. Lewis.
Even if it's a Narnia book, you're still attending. You're not giving. It's like trying to keep the car running in gear all the time and park it at the same time. You can't. We can't do it. And I think it's a real hazard that the amount of dream time, daytime dreaming, goes down when you're over attending to things. I used to see this with students at LSE who, in those few weeks before finals, when those students who cared about exams were studying stupid amounts of time, and they got sleep disturbance.
Yeah.
Because they'd overloaded the default system. It's really important that we all realize we need an awful lot less attending. When analysts work, what we do is free floating attention. So we're not grasping every detail. We're watching the whole of the thing unfold. Somebody flashed something up then. White and brown noise. That would be would that help? White noise can do, because there's nothing to attend to. And that would turn down your salience mode. Oh, there's nothing to listen to here. Do you see? And if you turn that down, then the default mode gets more of a chance to do its thing. Another thing that is interesting is the effect of meditation, because in meditation, you're trying to use the executive network to turn down the default mode. So I'm attending to my breath. I'm attending to my breath. Oh my God, I'm attending to my breath. Oh, there goes the thought. The default mode's cut in. Back to the breath. Do you see? What about something you've listened to many, many times, the same audiobook? Do you know, I've never tried that. But again, because it's an attention demanding task, you're not letting, that's like driving along with the clutch slipping. You're not really letting off happen. Do you see? You've got to have ears on, and you've got to be listening to the thing.
it's quite fascinating to talk about the default mode network, but I'm just wondering if somebody actually would like also to ask something about dreams more directly. Just a question before we go
Yeah.
further down the line of the DMN.
Someone asked, do analysts use their one on the patient or the patient's one? The answer is obviously both and neither nor. When you're in a room with a patient, your mind and their mind are oscillating backwards and forwards between the different networks. When patients bring dreams, they are free associations to what's happening in the room between the two people. This is part of why you can't have a manual to interpret dreams, because the dream is situational. Good question. The dream is situational to what's actually going on in an analytic session. I said that the dream unconscious is always on our side. What about nightmares? Nightmares have a wonderfully helpful role in helping us process the things that we don't want to process. Because we'll do anything rather than look at the thing in the nightmare. So it's like the volume is turned right up. The emotional volume is turned right up. If you don't have nightmares as children, you're going to be in serious difficulties. Can you see why? Because when you're a child, you're growing all of these parts of your mind. You're learning how to manage your feelings. You're learning how to manage feelings of murderous rage, envy, frustration. It's safer to learn this while you are asleep, being chased by the monster, rather than have to learn it when you're facing your angry father. Because in the dream, there's a possibility, the outcome might be terrible, but at least you've worked on connecting feelings to thinking. And if you have a terrifying parent, it's very hard to do that live.
Sun 2 has her hand up, maybe.
Yeah.
It's all right. My question is going back to something else he said. So take the one about lucid dreaming first and then come back to me.
Okay, is the one about lucid dreaming on the thing?
Well,
What
Tony
about
was
lucid
asking-
dreaming? Yes, what about lucid dreaming? I've had one lucid dream in 67 years, or which means 64 years of remembering dreams. I can remember one. My daughter has them quite often. So about 5% of the population have them on a regular basis. Most of us don't. Arguably, you can learn to lucid dream, and there's a splendid book by Steve Labarge, I think, called Lucid Dreaming, How to Do It. I'm never really very sure what you'd want to do it for. What are you going to do with it? It's useful. My daughter Rosie used them to help manage nightmares. She realized that she could say to the monster in the dream, "Go away, monster," and the monster went away. It was extraordinarily helpful. And young people, particularly because their brains are still developing, seem to have more lucid dreams than adults and seem to just go, "Oh, well, that's it. That's okay. No big deal." I didn't realize that she did this until she was sort of 16, and then she told me. Another thought about lucid dreaming is that it's a kind of displacement. And this is an idea that comes from Ronald Fairbairn, a Scots analyst, that when we're dealing with huge amounts of stress, we tend to dissociate. It's called dissociative splitting. So if you're being traumatized, something has happened to your body, but you left. It's like you're having an out-of-body experience. Certainly people who are victims of torture report this, or people who've had really traumatic childhood experiences. They survived because they dissociated. And Fairbairn says, well, you can dissociate in a dream. It doesn't just have to be during waking. You split in your dream so that your dream ego separates from the dream script and can interact with it. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, but it's certainly a thing. So my view is they do happen, but I'm not going to spend 65 years, if I live to be 130, trying to work out how to do it. I think it's much more fun to just let the dreams come along as they come. Maybe that's rather old-fashioned. Anyone else?
I'll just offer that the Tibetans, Buddhist monks in particular, think of lucid dreaming as a way of preparing for death.
Indeed. Would anyone else like to ask? Bert Chan, would it be, sorry, what's the connection between psilocybin-induced trips and dreams? Or are the same networks involved? Yes, is the short answer. The snag with psilocybin is an extraordinarily powerful drug. It's being experimented with in the treatment of depression. It's like a bit like ecstasy. It fires everything at once. So you go, it suspends the sense of time. It's a bit like hitting a television that isn't working with a hammer. You don't quite know how it works, but it does seem to do it. There is a fantastic book just come out from the Imperial College Research Group that shows how useful psilocybin is in the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder. And
Dale,
yeah,
we did mention that we analysts end on time. So could you, in 30 seconds, answer two questions?
Yes.
One is the title of the book from Fairbanks.
Fairbanks.
And you remember it?
Not off the top of my head. It's written in 1951. I can't just do it in 30 seconds.
Okay, I think that should be enough information to trace it. And I'm afraid the other questions about the function of increased streaming probably need to leave for the next time, because I think that
if it was, why is it that some people daydream more than others, which is how I understood it? That depends really on how much information you've got to process and how emotionally sensitive you are. In meditation, do you use the executive network to turn down the default network? Yes. That's what you do.
And Dale, do you have a website?
No, I can't do technology. Arthur's done it all.
Okay.
Dale, can you
very last
very quickly say the name of the title of the book that you were about to give before Arthur the time? Yeah. It was a book about psilocybin and PTSD, Imperial research.
Can I email it to you, Amanda? I can do this by looking at my bookcase, and I can see exactly what it is, but it's next door. Sorry, I can't answer all the questions. I hope that's been of some use to you all.
Well, it could have been just the introduction of a much longer talk and seminar, and there would be so many more questions, I'm sure. But for tonight, I'm afraid we need to leave it here. And thank you so much, Dale, for giving this fascinating talk. Thank you for you all who attended and made the effort, and for your questions. And then I hope we will meet again. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.